Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maybe someone could close that door. So reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 51, Text 30, and it's April 15th? Yes? 2024 in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Shushrushatam Shushrushatam avyalikam Ashmakam narapungava Swajanma karma gotram va Katyatam yadi rochate Sushrushatam, who are eager to hear, of yalikam, truthfully, ashmakam, to us, nada, among men, pumgava, O most eminent, swa, your, janma, birth, karma, activity, gotram, lineage, va, and katyatam, may it be told, yadi, if, rochate, it pleases. BBT translation. O best among men, if you like, please truly describe your birth, activities, and lineage to us who are eager to hear. Okay, so let's look at this translation. O best among men, he's saying you're the best person. If you like, it's up to you. Please, truly, in truth, describe birth, activities, and lineage. Lineage includes name. To us, and us here is in the plural, who are eager to hear. BBT purport. When the Supreme Lord descends to this world, he certainly becomes Narapungava, the most eminent member of human society. Of course, the Lord is not actually a human being, and Muchakunda's questions will lead to a clarification of this point. Thus, the term Sushrushavam, to us, who are sincerely eager to hear, in other words, it's plural, indicates that Muchakunda is inquiring in a noble way for his and others' benefit. Okay, we're going to look at commentary first by Srila Sanatana Goswami. Though he sees the forearm form directly, he also remembers the devas should not touch the earth. So remember in yesterday's verses, he was talking about how the Lord's lotus feet were touching the earth. So he sees, here's somebody with 4 hands, but his feet are touching the earth. So I guess he's human, even though he has 4 hands. Unable to determine that he is Vishnu, he calls to him, considering him to be a remarkable human. O best among men, because you are the best of humans, please describe at your discretion avyalikam, your birth. Vyalika means disagreeable, so avyalikam means what's agreeable. Or describe truthfully. He speaks in the plural to show great respect. So plural is shushruvatam. In other words, we are eager to hear. In the plural, to show great respect on seeing him. Va means everything or suggest alternatives. What can I do if you do not describe the birth because it is secret? Or tell me what you want to do, karma. If you cannot do that, tell your family lineage and name at least. That is, if you want to. This is uttered out of great politeness. And we're going to read Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's. Muchakunda said, please tell us who want to hear. The plural usage of the words sushrushatam, to us, who are sincerely eager to hear, indicates Muchakunda's noble position and his qualification to hear from Krishna. Otherwise, Krishna would not speak if he thought that Muchakunda was a low-class, unqualified person. And looking at Srila Jiva Goswami. O best of men, he addresses him in this way because Krishna is acting like a human touching the earth. Please tell me, eager to hear about your pleasing, avyalikam, birth, activities, and name, gotram. Gotram literally means your family. The passive is used to indicate respect for his birth, activities, and name. Avyalikam also means truthfully. The word va indicates all the items or alternatives. Though secret, one of these can be revealed. He says, if it pleases you, out of humility. Sushrushatam avyalikam, asmakam narapungava, swajanma karma gotram va, katayam yadi rochate. O best among men, if you like, please truly describe your birth, activities, and lineage to us who are eager to hear. So here, Muchakunda is asking for revelation of transcendental knowledge. There's a prayer like this, of course, at the end of the Ishopanishad. And please reveal yourself to me. And one of the songs that we usually sing at Rathayatra, Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhava to me. Please show yourself to me. I want to see you. Yes. And it's interesting that we have in this chapter two descriptions of the form of the Lord. One as seen by whom? Kalayavana, and another is seen by Muchakunda. And the descriptions are almost identical. Two different people seeing the same person. And it's interesting that the Lord is described twice. Once is seen by Kalayavana and once is seen by Muchakunda. But the appreciation of what they're seeing is radically different. So Kalayavana is seeing, oh, here's my enemy who I want to kill. And Muchakunda is seeing, here's some great personality that I would like to know more about. Mm-hmm. So it's not exactly what we perceive. I mean, modern psychologists, psychiatrists understand this very well. It's not exactly what we perceive, but it's our feeling and our stories about and our desire about what we perceive that changes how we experience life. This is true in general, isn't it? Right? It's not what happens to us or what we perceive, but it's how we feel about it, how we're relating to it. Two people can experience exactly the same thing in terms of sense perception, but have an entirely different response intellectually and emotionally to what they're perceiving. And we see this all the time. Just like if you ask people, what's fun? And people will give you a wide variety of answers. Some people will say it's fun to go to a concert with 100,000 people. And some people will say going to a concert with 100,000 people would be hellish. Or if you say, how do you feel about going to the beach? So some people will say, oh, that's so much fun going in the sand and the water and the sunshine. And other people will say, oh, it's the sand and the water and the sunshine. I can't stand it. So it's not just what we perceive, but it's how we think about it. What is our consciousness? And therefore, what we're trying to do in spiritual life is change our consciousness, so that the Lord will reveal himself to us. Now, of course, here the Lord is standing right in front of King Muchakunda. And Muchakunda is saying, even though I'm seeing you in front of me, I'd like to know who you are. I'd like to know something about you. But even this is true in the world in general. The class I gave the other Sunday on Krishna meditations, how to see the Lord in the sunshine, how to see the Lord in the birds, in the trees, in the water, in our abilities, in everything in the world. Premanjana tarita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shaima sundaram achinta gunaswarupam. Right, when Srila Ramananda Roy said to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I see that you're actually Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to him, oh, you see Krishna everywhere. You're always seeing Krishna. And I find it fascinating that the neophyte is advised to see Krishna in the light of the sun, in the light of the moon, and so forth. And the very advanced devotee, the Mahabhagavata, also sees Krishna like that. So if we want the Lord to reveal himself to us in everything in our life and also in his personal form, let's look at how King Muchakunda is going about this procedure. So, first of all, he understands that the Lord can only be revealed by his grace. I mean, such is a very easy to understand thing, even materially speaking. If I want to know something about any of you, I mean, I could do research, right? I could go on the internet and see what your social media profile is, and, you know, maybe I could pay some money to some investigative place to find out where you were born and your parents' names and things like that. But if I really want to understand something about you, you have to voluntarily reveal yourself to me. That's always the case, isn't it, right? I mean, how many people in our lives really know us? Like, there's a lot of people who think they know me or they know something about me, but there's only a handful of people that really deeply know me because I decide that I can trust them. I really like what Satchidananda Maharaj said many years ago, that we're all wondering whether or not we can trust God. You know, can I trust him? But the real question is, can God trust us? Because when you really know someone deeply, that person becomes vulnerable to you. We talked about the other day about how God has feelings. Remember we were talking about that? We were quoting from the third canto about Lord Varaha, and when Hiranyaka was insulting the Lord, it said that the Lord was pained by the abusive words of the demon, but he bore this pain so he could carry the earth to safety. And Srila Prabhupada in that purport talked about how the Lord has feelings. And Krishna makes himself completely vulnerable to his great devotees. I mean, that may sound ridiculous for the all-powerful God. How can he be vulnerable? But he's a person and he has feelings. And therefore it is said that Prema Bhakti controls Krishna. When Srila Rupa Goswami gives the 6 attributes of bhakti, one of them is that Krishna becomes controlled. Prabhupada says that the pure devotee holds Krishna in his hand. And Krishna naturally wants to fulfill the desires of his great devotees. And he appears to them, as Lord Brahma says, in whatever form they want to see him. And he reveals the innermost secrets of his heart to the great devotees. So he only does that if he trusts us. Therefore, it's only by his grace. And again, this is true for anyone. How much more so is it true for very big people in this world? I mean, even a small, big person. If you want to get to know the mayor of Hillsborough, you know, that's harder than getting to know me. That person is less accessible. And the same with, you know, a governor or a congressperson or, you know, some big celebrity. If you want to get to know some big celebrity. That's why there's such a huge industry in people talking about what's going on with celebrities. And there's people who, you know, try to get intimate photographs of them and find out what's really going on in their life, because it's not so easy unless they reveal themselves. So there's nothing we can do to force Krishna to reveal himself. Nothing. There's not any amount of rituals or service or anything we can do that will force Krishna. This is, of course, the last verse in the Shikshashtaka. You know, you can see me, you cannot see me. You can embrace me, you can trample me. This is up to you. And Krishna comes and goes even from his greatest devotees, even from Mother Yasoda, even from Srimati Radharani. He's coming and going. It's not that they can demand, oh, Krishna, you have to come here immediately. You have to reveal yourself to me. It's not like that. When Krishna wants to go to Mathura, he goes to Mathura. He may tell, you know, his intimate devotee, well, I'll meet you at this time, and he may not come. And that's up to him. He's independent. So this mentality that it's up to Krishna, I cannot obligate him. And again, such is true with any jiva. I cannot obligate another jiva to interact with me in a particular way or to reveal themselves to me, what to speak of the Supreme Lord. Now, I like it that Machakunda starts with what he's able to perceive. He starts with something, and he's able to perceive, right, as Mahamantra Prabhu was talking about yesterday, how Krishna's lotus feet are touching the ground. Of course, here, Krishna in Mathura, he is wearing shoes, Prabhupada talked about how when we paint Krishna like in Mathura and on the battlefield, he has very beautiful jeweled shoes. But still his feet are touching the ground. So when the demigods come to this planet, they don't really interact with our space-time. So you remember before in the description of King Muchukunda, how when he was fighting for the demigods, all of his family members passed away? Everybody remembers that? Right? His wife, his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, all of those people had died and no one even remembered their names. So a long, long, long time had passed. Actually, yugas had passed, and Muchukunda had barely aged because he was living in a different space-time in the universe. So when the demigods come here, they're not interacting with our time scale. They may come here and they may be visible to human beings. Sadaputa Prabhu, in his book Alien Identities, I talked about people who see not only demoniac living entities, but also divine living entities. And this happens all the time, actually, even in our modern age. But they're still staying in their own reality. And one of the symptoms of this is that their feet don't touch the ground. Now, it's interesting that when the Lord comes to earth, his feet do touch the ground. We have all these examples in Vrindavan of Krishna's footprints, right? And Krishna leaves his footprints that impress the land with the different lines on his feet. And the residents of Vrindavan, they're careful not to walk over those footprints. Even the cows, they'll walk around them. So Krishna's footprints are preserved. And I'm thinking when the Lord came to Maharaj Prithu's sacrifice, Lord Vishnu came, one way he showed respect to Prithu was by touching the ground. Of course, even when the Lord touches the ground, he still he remains uncontaminated by the material atmosphere. Now, he doesn't require to do, the demigods they have to do certain whatever subtle tricks in order to keep their own existence when they come here. But the Lord doesn't have to do that. Even when he apparently comes here in the womb of Devaki, even when he's touching the ground and so forth, he's never contaminated by the material atmosphere. But Muchukunda starts with what he sees. Oh, your feet are touching the ground. So he logically concludes, you must be human. You must not be a demigod. Of course, here the Lord has 4 hands, and humans don't usually have 4 hands. So it's a little confusing to him, and he's saying, well, you must be the best of humans. But he's starting with that. What does he observe? So in the same way, we can start with where we are. In fact, that's the only place we can start. When we're asking for the Lord to reveal himself to us, we can start with where we are. I see the sunshine. I drink the water. I see your deity form. I hear your holy name. I taste your prasadam. We're starting with where we are. To be appreciative, he's appreciating in his own best way. I mean, it's explained that in one sense you could say that it's sort of, it's insulting to say that Krishna is a human. But this is the way he's able to appreciate Krishna at this particular time. Often the prayers of the devotees, once they realize the Lord, they'll say this sort of thing, oh, I insulted you by comparing your feet to a lotus flower. What a terrible insult, to compare your color to a sapphire. Oh, I insulted you. You're so much greater than that. So although it could be taken like that, he's starting with where he's at. And then he's very specific with what he wants to know. And I find it sometimes amusing that people will ask me, please bless me. It's like, bless you for what? What do you want? I don't know. I don't know what I want. Please give me some, tell me something about Krishna consciousness. Well, what do you want to know? We have a Bhagavatam set that's this big, like, be specific. Just like Srila Prabhupada didn't like when people asked questions at the end of a class that weren't related to the topic of the class. He said, then, it's going to go on forever. Right? Once, actually, here in North Carolina, a visiting devotee gave a Sunday feast class where he tried to describe all of Krishna conscious philosophy in 45 minutes. And it was absolutely the worst class that I've ever heard. I wish I'd recorded it so that I could have used it as a bad example when I teach people how to speak. But be specific. What do you want to know? I'd like to know about you. Right? Well, what do you want to know? Just like when you go for an interview. So I've been interviewed many times. And generally what the interviewer does is before the interview, they give you a list of questions that they're going to discuss, that they're going to ask you. They even review with you, what would you like to talk about? So he's asking, what was he asking? Who remembers? Birth activities and gotra, gotra means your family, and that can be understood as what family you're in or what's your name, what's your identification. So how did you appear here? Because he's thinking, you don't seem quite like an ordinary person. What do you do and who are you? So these are the things he wants to know. And of course, Krishna tells us in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma tumev divyam, evam yo veti tatvata, tvaktva deham punar janma, naiti mam eti sorjuna. If you know these things, if you know about my birth and activities, and you know them tatvata, you know them perfectly, then you don't take birth again. And many times Prabhupada will talk about that. That's really all you need to do. Now, that's not knowing it like filling in a multiple choice exam, How was Krishna born? Oh, like this, like this, like this. What are his... It's not that kind of knowing exactly, but it's having some actual realization. Now, he also wants to know these things truthfully. He's saying, please give me the actual information. Don't deceive me. And then he's saying va, which can mean or. So you can tell me any of these. You can tell me all of these if you want, or you can tell me any one of these as you like. But please tell me something about yourself. These are the things I'm interested in. And of course, this is one of the main questions that any religion should be able to answer, and one of the main questions that most religions can't answer at all. Who's God? I mean, if you want to define what is a religion, so I can give analogously, if you want to say, how would you define food? So you could say, well, we're going to define food by something you put in your mouth, you chew it, and you swallow it. But that's not a very good definition. A better definition would be something you put in your mouth, chew, and swallow that actually nourishes you and gives you some sort of health, that gives you some sort of energy. That would be a much better definition. So if you're going to say a religion, just like in the United States we have in our Constitution because of religious persecution that happened in Europe, we have in our Constitution that the government will neither support nor prohibit any particular religion. But the government doesn't know exactly what a religion is. They're confused about this. So, what is a religion? You could say, well, religion is something that seeks to answer the big questions in life. Who am I? Is there a creator? What is the nature of that creator? What's the purpose of life? Why is there suffering? What happens when we die? The major questions that really can't be answered just by logic and sense perception. But if we look at the major religions of the world, most of them aren't very good at answering any of these questions, which I find rather astonishing. Who am I? What am I doing here? Is there a creator? What's the nature of creator? What's the purpose of life? What happens after death? They really have a hard time with this. And especially, what's the nature of the creator? So all the religions will tell you, oh, there is a creator. There is a God. All right, tell me something about him. What's his name? Like I grew up in Judaism where they say you're not supposed to ever say the name of God. You're not even supposed to write the word God. You can't write the word God. You have to write G-D. You can't write G-O-D. I mean, they have some idea that the name of God is so sacred, like that once you write it on a piece of paper, what are you going to do with that paper? You can't throw it away. We actually have this problem in our Hare Krishna movement with things like calendars. At the end of the year, you have this calendars with all these pictures of Krishna. What are you supposed to do with it? You're supposed to hoard every calendar that you ever got, because it's always this kind of problem. What do you do with pictures of Krishna? But anyway, they have this idea, and if you say, what's God's name, they can't tell you. What they call God is Hashem. Shem means name. Ha means the. They call God the name. Right? The main thing they'll say is Baruch Hashem, which means blessed be the name. What name? I don't know. The name. And this is true in general. You know, if you ask Christians, what's God's name? They'll say Jesus. But to say Jesus is the Son of God. What's the name of the Father? Nothing. I mean, they can give you Adonai and Elohim, which just means Lord or God. You still don't have a name. What's his gotram? What's his family? Forget that. I mean, what's God's family? What does he do? Well, they can say, he splits the Red Sea, and he appears in a pillar of smoke, and he appears in a pillar of fire, and he appears in a burning bush that's not consumed, and he tells his devotees how to smite their enemies. But that's like it. He judges the sinful. So I remember getting this Christian track of this faceless man in a suit. Of course, he's wearing a suit, right? In this big throne, and there's these little ant-like people at the base of the throne, and there's a screen, and he's showing your whole life, and the little ant-like people are looking up at every aspect of their life, and then God is saying, okay, let's review your life. Okay, you go to heaven, you go to hell, you go to heaven, you go to hell. What does God do? What are his activities? I mean, if I want to know whether or not I want to worship God and whether or not I want to spend an eternity with God, shouldn't I know what we're going to do? And how does he appear here? Right? When I was traveling recently in the Middle East, and I had this one, we took the tour of the Grand Mosque in Bahrain, and basically your payment for getting the tour is that you get lectured for a half an hour on Islamic philosophy. They don't do that in Abu Dhabi, but in Bahrain they do that. So, she's telling us God can't incarnate. He can't come to earth. He just can't come here. I'm like, well, isn't he all powerful? And she's like, yes. I said, then why can't he come here? Well, he just can't. He's just too different from the earth. He just can't. They don't have this idea that he can come and put his feet on the earth and he can still retain his own nature. He can appear to be walking around the earth and leaving footprints, but he still retains his own nature. He doesn't mix with the material energy. He can appear to be born. He can appear to have a mother who appears to be pregnant with him. And he can appear to be born. Right? Of course, he's born with 4 hands, like here he has 4 hands and jewelry and clothing, but then he then he turns himself into an ordinary baby. They don't understand that he can do that. So if we don't know about these things, if we don't know about Janma Karma Tame Jivyam, then it's very difficult to absorb our mind in the Supreme. I mean, it's practically impossible. How can you absorb your mind in something you know nothing about? I don't know how to do that. How do I love somebody that I don't know anything about? I mean, I know something. Okay, well, I can love him because he's so expert at creating flowers or something, but it's hard to love someone you don't know anything about. If we think about the other humans that we love, or even you love an animal, you know something about it. It has there's some personality, there's some activities, there's some history that connects you and allows you to love. So if you're just talking about loving God and being with God, we have to know something about him. And finally, he's polite. And being polite relates back to the fact that Krishna has to reveal himself. So he's saying, if it pleases you, if you want to. Now, why should Krishna reveal himself to King Muchukunda? So he gives 2 reasons. He says, I really want to know. I really want to know. I'm very eager to know. And of course, Srila Rupa Goswami says that this eagerness is the only price. And Krishna says that the whole purpose of sadhana bhakti is to develop this desire, this ichcha, this eagerness. I mean, again, if we think about our human dealings, I want to have relationships with people who want to have relationships with me. If you don't like me, if you don't like hanging out with me, why should I tell you anything about myself and hang out with you? If you don't really want to know what I have to say, why should I tell you? I mean, this is just normal. Like someone wrote me the other day, I've written an essay and I'd like your feedback on it. And I said, well, I was an editor for 30 years. I was trained by Jayadvaita Swami. And if you're going to have me look at your essay, I may cut it to pieces. I may tell you things you don't want to hear. Are you sure you want me to look at it? And she said, yeah, I'm sure. I said, look, why don't you wait a night and pray on it and really think about it and let me know. Right? Because we've all had experience that people say, I really want to know about something, and you tell them and they just become angry, yes? We've all had this experience. Especially when someone says, tell me what my faults are. Woo! Probably don't answer that question. So, am I really eager to hear? And usually there's some test. If someone's asking us something that may be unpleasant, usually we try a little bit. We test a little bit. We tell them a little something and see how they respond to it. So Muchukunda is saying, I really want to hear. And then he's saying, and I'm a noble person. I'm a person of integrity. And he's doing this by using the plural. He's saying we want to hear, although he's just one person. Now in the BBT purport, they're saying this means he wants other people to hear as well. Our previous acharyas are saying he's using the plural to indicate that he's noble, that he's a great king. And as a great king, he keeps his word, he keeps his integrity, and he can be trusted. So this is also very important. If we're asking someone something confidential, please tell me about your activities. Please tell me about your name. Please tell me about what you do. We want to show that we can be trustworthy. And here he's saying, I'm coming from a good family. I'm coming from a noble family. We're people who have integrity. But even if we don't come from a noble family, even if we come from a terrible family, right? I was reading the wife of one devotee. She's a Christian. She was saying how her father trained her in doing errands for drug dealers when she was 3 years old. So even if we come from a very degraded family, if we can say, I'm a person of integrity, I'm a person that can be trusted, therefore, my Lord, you can reveal these things to me because I'm trustworthy. How do we show that we're trustworthy to Krishna? Well, that we follow the instructions given by our guru, given by our disciplic succession, that we actually engage sincerely in the process, that we don't take the revelations the Lord has given us cheaply. Now, there's all sorts of instructions from our acharyas about how and when and with whom to discuss the intimate personal revelations that the Lord has given us, that we treat them with honor and respect. I'm just thinking, yesterday, I asked this one devotee in Russia if I could purchase some of her artwork. So she sent me a link to dozens of her pictures online, and I could have downloaded all of them. They were all in high resolution, but I just downloaded the ones that I was actually paying her for. And then she had to trust me that I'm going to only download the ones that I'm going to be paying her for, that I'm not going to just distribute them all over the place. Right? And there was some temptation. Wow, there's all these wonderful pictures. I could use them in my service, and they're such high resolution. But then I would lose my integrity. And then the next time that I asked somebody for something, they'd say, well, we heard what you did to so-and-so, and you're just a thief, and why should we trust you? So if we're also going to ask Krishna to reveal himself, we want to be a person of high integrity. So here we have to understand that the Lord can be understood only by his own revelation, to start with what we're able to perceive, to be clear about what we want to know, to request the Lord, and to be able to be ourselves a person of integrity. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.